and welcome to the channel. I am Chrissy Tina T, and let's call this Chrissy Tina Talks. That initial is finally coming in handy. But I want to test out the new mic that has built-in noise reduction. It has that as an option, so I'm using this to test if you can hear the leaf blowers in the background. Hopefully you can't. But also, I want to talk about generative AI as a creator, as an artist, and as an author, because it's something that has been seeping into just about everything at this point. It's basically become an uncontrollable mess. And it's frustrating. Now I'm not talking about, like, assistive AI. I'm not talking about, like, actual useful AI. I'm talking about, like, the generative AI that people are just typing a prompt in, hitting enter, and choosing from a selection of essentially generated images. Now, I mean, there is the obvious issue with AI that is how it's sourced, how it affects the environment, but my main issue is with how it's affected communities in general, because it's been making its way into, again, the writing community as well, the author side of things. It's been infecting the art spaces for a while now. That's pretty much where it started, and now it's sort of leaking into the other categories and communities. But one of the things that I have definitely seen be a main issue with even just speaking out about generative AI, and I'm sure I'll get plenty of comments saying these things in defense of AI. So you get the diehard generative AI users who are always trying to essentially come back with, but this software you use has an AI tool in it. How is it any different than this thing you do, or this thing that has been done? How is it any different from when digital art was first introduced to the scene and people didn't see that as real art? And that is an unfair comparison. That's not even really a comparison. Because just because a software or program has an AI tool doesn't mean people use it. It is something you can actively ignore, and it doesn't change anything about your workflow. But to straight up say things like digital art is the same as generative AI? No. Generative AI is what people who didn't think digital art was real art thought digital art was. That's what people used to try and discredit digital art by saying it was when it wasn't. Because the same lessons and same amount of practice and learning and techniques you need to build just to adjust and learn how to do various forms of digital art, whether it be digital sculpting, drawing, painting, animating, the same skills you would learn, those same skills you need to learn with traditional media, you still need to learn to some degree with the add-on of the tools to do these things digitally are still things you need to learn. These are things you learn how to do. The computer isn't doing everything for you. The computer is essentially a new medium in that sense. It is taking a lot of the traditional aspects of these different things and sort of transmuting it to digital. So you're essentially learning a new way to do these things. That's not what generative AI does. With generative AI, it's mostly typing in a prompt and hitting a button. That's what people thought digital art was for the longest time. But that's not what it is. These are two different things. That's not even apples to bananas. Because apples and bananas, those are still fruit. But they're different types of fruit. This is apples and, say, like, asparagus. Or apples and a toy apple. Like, the toy apple looks like an apple, but it's not an apple. I remember seeing someone comment in response to one of my posts about AI over on, I think it was either Threads or LinkedIn, and their argument was, well, how is it any different than photography and using a camera? And it's very different, because the camera, you don't just point the camera at something and say, okay, I want this exact composition, but remove this, change the color of that, add something that isn't there at all to the picture, completely distort things in a way that it doesn't look real. A camera doesn't do that. Photography still requires a lot of practice, a lot of learning the tool that is the camera and the various settings and how to work that tool to get the desired outcome. It takes learning composition because you still have to set the shot up yourself. Also, a steady hand, which I don't have. I have very shaky hands, but it requires more than just aiming the camera and pressing the button. There is so much more that goes into it. And people forget that. Meanwhile, generative AI is taking over every space, and now including the author space, seeing generative AI taking over just like publishing in general. There's a full AI vanity press that's been released recently, and I've seen so many people talk about AI generated covers. Don't even get me started on AI generated books. Just because you can publish a lot of books in a year with generative AI doesn't mean that you should. Because like with generative AI images, and generative AI text sources things fairly similarly. It is basically harvesting off the backs of existing works that they didn't have permission to source from. And it's very much incoherent. It's very much, I mean, I hate to say slop, but slop. It makes no sense. It also, I'm going to say right now, as someone who does most of the work themselves, because I can't afford an editor, I can't afford someone to format my books myself, I know how hard it is to do everything yourself. I know how hard it is to edit. Like, I am a stickler for detail when it comes to my works, and then there's still human errors that happen. That's a thing. But I know what to look for. I purposely format my books into a physical form for edit copies. So whether I've only produced or published 2 books or not, there are still a handful of other books I'm working on that I have fully formatted and printed in a physical form to edit and read through multiple times, because that's how I'm more comfortable working when it comes to, well, editing a book and working things out. Generative AI can only do so much, but it's scary how easy it is to miss on the first round. Because a lot of people who don't know what to look for won't notice. And if they do, it won't be on first glance. Like, I'll even admit, when it comes to generative AI art, there have been plenty of times where I've seen an image and be like, well, it's kind of interesting, but then there's like a little uncanny valley filter in the back of my mind that kind of sets off an alarm going, something is off here. But then again, I also have a background in art. I literally spent a majority of my life studying art and doing various programs. Like, I taught myself how to do digital art. I know how difficult it is to relearn something and feel like you're back at square one. Like, why am I not as good as I am traditionally digitally? Because I literally almost completely gave up on digital art. I literally almost completely ditched art as a potential career path in general. Purely because I was confused why my skills traditionally and digitally weren't the same. Art, writing, music, film, all of that contains skills you can learn. And even the basics, they don't take that long to learn. As long as you're willing to put time and effort and dedication into learning it, you can pick it up. It's like, yeah, it's not going to be the best right off the bat. It takes time and practice. But you can learn. These are skills anyone can learn. No one's born immediately able to do things the way they end up being able to. Like, I didn't come out of the womb being able to make art or write. These are things I had to learn. But with the amount of generative AI just taking up everything, every space, every spot on the internet, and in general, it's disheartening, especially in the job market. Just the amount of listings that say they're looking for an artist, only to then say, oh yeah, no, you have to be really, really familiar with generative AI programs. They're not looking for an artist. They're looking for a prompter. Because a prompter and an artist, 2 totally different things. An artist can, yes, start with an idea that would be the prompt, but an artist will expand on it thumbnail, work out different concepts based on that, and make something from it. A prompter doesn't. And that's what people that claim to be AI artists and AI authors do. They just type in a prompt. Yes, they pick and choose the ones they like, but that's not the same as thumbnailing. That's not the same as doing all of that yourself. It's like, again, it's like in apples to toy apples. They look the same, or they look similar, but they're not actually the same at all. So, those are my thoughts on generative AI and the problems I've noticed with it. Again, I'm not saying don't use AI, especially generative AI. You do you. You make the decision yourself. I'm not going to use it, but again, we can agree to disagree on thoughts and everything regarding generative AI. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video, whenever that is and whatever it's about. Bye.